Negative pressure versus positive pressure. All right, when we sing, our goal is to have only the amount of air coming through our vocal cords that we want. We only want the air that's going to generate the sound we want to make. We don't want anything extra. Now, one of the ways we do this is by controlling the natural direction of our airflow. Okay? Now I'm going to demonstrate positive versus negative pressure. I want you to kind of do this along with me so you can feel what this feels like. It's very important. Okay? I want you to take a very deep breath. All right? And I want you to squeeze your upper diaphragm to close off your subglottis and hold your breath. All right? You're going to take as much big a breath as you can. You expand your lower diaphragm as far out as you can. Okay? Here we go. Now just kind of release pressure in your subglottis and just allow a little bit of that air to escape. It's flowing outward. It wants to get out. The balloon, if you will, of your diaphragm is overfilled at that point, and the air is just dying to get out. The air has all that force and all that pressure that's trying to escape your body. That's positive pressure. Let's feel that again. That's the sound of air trying to escape. Now, if you wind up before you sing a phrase, hey, whoo, it's really hard to sing that way. And the reason is all of that positive pressure, all that positive air pressure from that giant breath you just took is trying to escape. And you have to squeeze your upper diaphragm hard enough to keep your subglottis closed and control that airflow. And it gets more and more difficult the more positive pressure you have. The bigger breath you've taken, the harder it is to control and restrain that air from just attacking your vocal cords and overtaking your sound, overtaking your singing, okay? Now, what you want to do is learn to develop negative pressure while you sing. Now, this is a little complicated, okay? You're going to have to bear with me. You're going to have to try something. You may have to watch this video a few times. You may have to send in some questions to the forum. All right? If you need to sign up for an in-person lesson on Skype or come into the studio and have me show you how to do this and make sure you're doing it right, it's going to save you a lot of heartache and trouble trying to learn to sing really, really well if you can get this down. All right? This is one of the foundations of great singing, is developing this negative pressure. Now what we're going to do is kind of borrow some technique from yoga practitioners who've really gotten breath control down, all right? Now what we're going to do, I'm going to breathe out all of my air. I'm going to hold my breath from my subglottis by squeezing my upper diaphragm, and I'm going to allow my stomach to collapse. Now I'm going to breathe out all my air. I'm going to squeeze. I'm going to stand up nice and straight. I'm going to push my chest out, and that's going to stretch my diaphragm, and I'm going to flatten it and allow it to just sink in and collapse. And then I'm going to release just ever so gently my subglottis. I'm going to open it and allow that air to flow backwards into my lungs, okay? When your lungs are completely deflated, your diaphragm and stomach flatten out, kind of get this suction going, and it pulls the air into your lungs. You don't have to breathe in. The air wants to get in there and fill that vacuum. We're using physics to our advantage, all right? So I want you to breathe out all your air, stand up straight, push your chest out a little bit, allow your stomach to collapse, and you're gonna just allow that air to rush in, all right? I'm gonna do this a couple times with you. Here we go. Squeeze. Stretch, flatten. All right, I'm going to do this again without explaining. It's a little difficult to actually talk while doing all these things at the same time. Here we go. Now see how my stomach was just completely caved in as I breathed out all that air and just allowed my diaphragm to flatten out. Now, that little stretch is really important, okay? We're going to use this later. A little stretch of your chest, expanding out to good posture, and really allowing that diaphragm to just sink in. Let your stomach just sink in completely. Let that negative pressure collapse your stomach inward, and then you're just gonna release the slightest little bit of air to come in so you can feel that negative pressure, that air rushing into your lungs. Here we go. That's negative pressure, okay? When you do this, when you have a little absence of air, when you have a vacuum created in your lungs, you no longer have to squeeze to keep your subglottis closed to fight against that air pressure. You simply keep your subglottis closed. A little bit of gentle pressure from here is plenty to keep it closed when there's no force pushing against it. The force is actually trying to pull back in. Then when you sing, it's an entirely different experience. You no longer have air trying to rush through your vocal cords. The more pressure you give from your lower diaphragm, the more support you give, the louder your sound gets. And that's it. That's all you have to worry about once you have some negative pressure developed. Because physics, that vacuum you've created is pulling the excess air back. And you no longer have that responsibility of controlling your breath by squeezing. All right, I'll give you an example. Now it's hard to sing with absolutely no air, and we're going to get into that in the next video, how we're going to kind of exploit this system even further, get a little bit more advanced in our breath control and breath support technique, and really start to take advantage of this negative pressure, okay? But I want you to get used to the feeling of positive pressure, the feeling of negative pressure. It's very important that when you sing, especially those higher, louder phrases, do not wind up, do not take a giant breath before you sing those parts. That's just going to make it so much harder. Breathe that air out. You have less air before you start those parts. Yeah! It's gonna work way better with less air. Way better, I promise you. All right, try it out. If you have any questions, hit me up on the forum. Take care.